The point of today's post will be to bolster my argument of letting the birth rate plummet to hell. That is what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to give you real life examples. This title alone says, yes, the birth rate needs to plummet to hell because why are you parenting your husband? She says, am I the a-hole for being snippy and accusatory towards my husband when I asked him to come back and clean up his toilet seat? Why are you having to tell an adult male to clean the pee off the toilet seat? Another example of why the birth rate needs to plummet to hell. Let's look at the post though. She's 40, he's 37, and she's having to say, come clean up the pee. All right. Am I the a-hole for being snippy and accusatory and not understanding towards my husband when I asked him to come back and clean up his toilet seat? I got into an argument tonight with my husband regarding my tone of voice when I asked him to come back and clean up the pee and hair left on the toilet seat. I do 99% of the household cleaning. We have 2 children with high needs and bathroom issues, so I end up cleaning up a lot of bathroom mess. My husband has ADHD and really doesn't notice messes. We have very different standards of cleanliness. I am so tired of ADHD being an excuse for doing things or not doing things. And this is the reason why I will continue to say, make these people lonelier, make these dudes lonelier, because now she not only has 2 kids that have high needs, she has a husband that contributes to her daily stresses. As you can see, I am already irritated with this husband, and I have already decided, even based on the title alone, that she is not the a-hole. But let's continue. I was cleaning up the bathroom after everyone tonight, and he was the last one to shower. I noticed the toilet seat was not clean, and I asked him, apparently in a snippy and accusatory tone, to come back and clean it up. He proceeded to argue with me about whether the mess was his and got very defensive. Later, I brought it up again and said I didn't appreciate that he was being childish when arguing about whether he made the mess, and that even if it wasn't his, he should just come back and clean it up. As I clean up everybody's messes all the time. He told me that my tone was the problem, and if I had just communicated nicely, he would have just come back and cleaned it up. I explained that I don't want to have to communicate in any form about it. This is an argument we have had many times before and many other similar ones, and that I expect adults should look behind them and clean up the toilet seat. He said people forget things. I explained that if his lack of cleaning up after himself was a rare occurrence, okay, fine, but it's not. And I tried to explain that I get pissy because I have to manage everything and it makes me feel resentful. To him, it's just a small ask. To me, it's one more gross thing I have to manage. He seems to think that I am not being a good partner if I don't want to help remind him and ask nicely. I also told him I think it is normal to expect an adult to do this on their own, and he seemed to disagree. He left in a huff and is mad. That is classic Darvo right there. I'll come back to that. I might be the a-hole for not communicating nicely with my husband when asking him to return and clean up his bathroom mess, for not being understanding that people forget things, and for not wanting to nicely remind him about it. Let's talk about Darvo. Darvo stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse Victim Offender. So she brings a real issue. There is pee and hair on the toilet. She needs it cleaned up. He peed on the toilet and left it there. That's the real issue. First of all, he denied that he did it. He gets defensive about it. That's where he's attacking her. So denies that he peed on the toilet and then attacks her by getting defensive. And then he reverses victim offender. Her tone is the issue, not the pee on the toilet. How she is coming to him. She's not being very kind to him regarding the pee on the toilet. And she's the one that is not communicating well. So she is the issue, not him, not the pee on the toilet. So this is a classic manipulation tactic where these people are able to try to get out of or deflect away from the original behavior. Darvo. This is a whole perfect example of Darvo. And once again, another example of why the birth rate needs to plummet to hell and why people like this need to be alone. Make them lonelier. This is where I was tagged in. She says, not the a-hole. My partner has ADHD and he cleans constantly. Your husband has found a way to weaponize his diagnosis and attack you for reasonable expectations. This is basic roommate level responsibility. You're a married single mom. I am so glad that we are using this lingo to make it very, very clear. Continue to use the words married single mom, wife appliance, hobosexual. Continue to use these words in all of these examples when we're talking to other women, so they can see that they know that they will be able to live a life that is easier and less stressful when they drop the dead weight. He'll either, if he's on his own, he will either continue to pee on the toilet and live in his own filth, or he'll have to clean it up himself. But she should not have to tell a grown man to clean up his pee. RPG Rob says, he's a stupid child. I learned to clean up after myself by the time I was a teenager. Men like this are babies, and his huff is A, because you embarrassed him, and B, because he believes he is too good to clean up piss. However, you are not. Tawfifi and Coffee says, not the a-hole. If his ADHD prevents him from being a clean human being, he is not managing his ADHD. I absolutely hate it when people use their diagnosis in this weaponized way. You don't have 2 kids, you have 3, and all of them can't manage to aim for the toilet and not the seat. Doe Eating Squid says, there is no tone you can use that will cause a guy like this to willingly clean his own piss. I speak from experience. Your choices are to live with his messes, clean it yourself, or dump him. And that last person says, not the a-hole. C. Dazer says, tell him next time any residual body fluids are going in his dinner. And that is gross, because then she would have to handle his bodily fluids. And I believe that that is disgusting. Gleneral says, as someone with ADHD, tell him I'm calling BS. I always wipe down the toilet after use because it's my pee and I'm not a literal child. And I don't care if there's only a tiny splash or drop or whatever, because it's my piss and I'd rather die from shame before letting my partner wipe it up. Congratulations. Yes, you are an adult. I wish that this man was an adult as well. And he says, and I'm saying this as a dude who will come back from the shops with everything except the one single item I actually went there for. I completely understand that notion. He says it's not an ADHD thing. He's an ass for trying to use that as an excuse. It's a basic decency, courtesy, respect, not being a toddler, so you clean up after yourself thing. Not the a-hole, obviously. So, with this example that I have shared with you today, have I taken another step towards proving that the birth rate needs to plummet to hell? Join the conversation and let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. I started following this post yesterday, and this is just another example of why the birth rate should plummet to hell. Listen to this title. This was posted in the marriage subreddit saying, my husband is a stay-at-home dad, yet complains nonstop about being a dad. And I actually believe that she does not have a stay-at-home dad as a husband. She has a hobosexual and or a pest that needs to nest and rest. Let's look at this post and you let me know, what do you believe that she has as an adult male that's living with her or living off her? She says pretty much the title. Not sure what I'm supposed to do. My husband, who's 34, and I, 30-year-old woman, have a really good life. She does not have a really good life with this man. I read this post. She has a sucky life. She says, I have a job that I love and I work full time, but I work from home. I make really good money. We have everything we could want or need. We have nothing to complain about, to be honest. My husband hated working. He absolutely hated it. He suffered from severe depression and blamed a lot of it on working. So when our son was 1, he's now 3, we decided that my husband would quit his job and be a stay-at-home dad. At the time, he swore that's all he wanted in life. He had all these grand plans, all these things he wanted to do with our son, and convinced me that that's what he needed to finally be happy. Yet every single day, all he does is complain now. He complains about having to change diapers, yet he won't really put the time into potty training. My parents take our son 3 days a week for 5 to 8 hours of the day, yet my husband still complains he has no alone time. The house stays clean, but he complains about doing it. Laundry hasn't been put away in weeks. I have to dig through the laundry hamper to find clothes every day. He constantly makes comments towards me about the things that I do. I go to the gym every day for an hour, and it never fails that as I'm leaving the house, he says, "Have fun, must be nice." Yet when I offer to watch our son during the workday so he can go do something, he always has an excuse not to go. I'm off on Friday for the holiday, so I told my husband that I'm going to take our child swimming at my family's house so that he could have the day to himself. And he made the snarky comment, "I don't want the day alone. It's going to be over quickly anyway, so what does it matter?" My son was playing after his bath when my husband was trying to get him dressed. So my husband threw down the shirt and said, "I'm so done with this." And he says stuff like that all the time. What am I supposed to do at this point? I have literally given this man every single thing that he could possibly want, and it's still not enough. He swears he's not depressed anymore, but I feel like he is. I have begged him to get help, but he won't. He says he's tried medication in the past and he didn't like how it made him feel. I'm on Zoloft and it has changed my life, so I have begged him to try something. He won't, and honestly, I don't know how much more I can take. It's making me so unattracted to him. It's making me feel bad every day. Not only do I work full time, I'm working on a certification to further my career and go back to school full time next month for a second degree that will also further my career. I do all that on top of be a present parent, help with house chores, and be a present wife. I'm drowning and I'm emotionally exhausted. Thanks if you read this far. I just really needed to vent. After reading all of that, I come back to this part and reflect. She says, "My husband and I have a really good life." I do not believe that this woman has a good life. She is stressed because she has a child who is 3 and an adult child who is 34 who is mostly useless. But there is more that comes out in the comment section. KL Moran says, "Honestly, sounds like your husband is one of those people who's miserable no matter what. He's a stay-at-home dad and your parents take your kid half the week. He has 1 kid, and instead of making the most of this time and giving your son a happy childhood, he's a miserable peen. I'm a stay-at-home mom and it's not easy, but he's getting lots of help and is still complaining. I look into counseling, but I'd be edging towards separating if he can't get it together. Nothing more attractive than a complaining partner who's not willing to put in the effort to improve anything. When I was a stay-at-home mom doing it alone, no support system, I would have been skipping if I had a support system that took care of my children 3 days a week. OMG, that would have, even just 1 or 2 days a week for 5 hours. Being a stay-at-home parent is not easy, so I completely understand. It is not an easy gig to do. There's no breaks when you're a stay-at-home parent. But to get a break 3 days a week for 5 to 8 hours a day, and this woman works from home, so she's still available if if he needs to take a break or the kid needs something. This mom is still available even though she's working from home. So he has it good, and he is a whiny, pissy person. Here's the OP. Listen to this part. This is the reason why I know she needs a divorce. Listen to this. That's exactly what I'm saying. He has so much support. I literally do all the bill paying and all the grocery shopping and all the dinner cooking. I do all the extracurriculars with our son while my husband stays at home. My parents take him 3 days during the week, and then I'm off on the weekends. My husband sleeps till 11 a.m. almost every day and spends lots of time playing video games with his friend while our son entertains himself, and yet my husband is still not happy. I'm literally at such a loss for words. I really do well controlling my anger, so I never lash out, but it's getting harder and harder to not just tell him to leave if he's not happy. I'm exhausted for her. I understand why she is at the end of her rope, and I really hope that she gets to the end of her rope quicker, because why are you doing all of this and he's doing nothing, and you're the one that is working and paying all the bills? And that's what KL Moran says. Wait, You shop and cook dinner and do all your son's activities. This is not an equal partnership. He wants to do as little as possible. I had depression and bad anxiety at one point when I was a stay-at-home mom, but his behavior is just rude, entitled, and selfish. He clearly wants to be a stay-at-home husband, but not the dad part. Honestly, I'd be disgusted because he's acting like he's your grumpy teenage son, not your partner. He needs to get his together before you burn out. And based on what she's saying, she could have an easier life if she was just a divorced mom versus a married single mom. This comment right here will make my case for why the birth rate needs to plummet to hell. This will be case closed. The OP says, yes, my parents took our son to Vacation Bible School at their church, and they had family night on the last night. I went alone to be with my son because my husband didn't want to go. I take my son to the zoo alone. I take him to the indoor playground alone. My husband doesn't want to go anywhere. He literally complains if I ask him to go out to dinner or to the beach. I do the shopping and cooking and finances, not because I want to, because if I don't do them, they won't get done. I'm so exhausted all the time, and I'm about to take on even more. My husband literally has it made, and that's why it's so frustrating that he complains all the time. We both grew up poor and with nothing. I busted my butt to give him and our son a life I could have never dreamed of. And it seems like it's just never enough to make him happy. No matter what I do, nothing is ever enough, and I'm so tired. I just want to cry because I'm so drained. I'm drained emotionally and mentally. I love my life, but he's putting so much negativity into it. And I love him so much, but he's exhausting. That is enough right there to close my case. And in another comment, someone suggested that he gets a part-time job. And this woman says he does not want to get a part-time job. This man literally wants to be a piece of furniture with eyes, playing video games, sucking up resources, and doing absolutely nothing for his own child. Let the birth rate plummet to hell and make these people lonelier. Let me know if I have proven my case with this post. Like, comment, and share. The birth rate will continue to plummet to hell, and people will continue to write these articles about the tax burden and who's going to take care of the elderly and all of this. They'll keep sounding the alarm bells, but they are not getting to the crux of the issue. So this content creator called Live Laugh Lucy, she made this short video. Now it is behind some music, so I took screenshots. So she says to her husband while looking at him sitting on his lap, real reasons we're not having another baby. So she has one. A lot of women will be one and done because they can simply see that they are going to shoulder the majority of the burden of parenting. So she says the real reasons we're not having another baby. And in the next clips, it lists out all of the reasons why she is unwilling to have another child. And here are all of her bullet points: postpartum depression, unequal parenting load, currently overwhelmed, financial strain, marital tension, physical complications, lack of time for each other, postpartum rage and anxiety, unresolved resentments, no village support. This piece right here, unequal parenting load, that's probably the reason for marital tension. It's the reason why probably she's currently overwhelmed. It's also probably the reason why she's feeling rage and anxiety. And this is causing unresolved resentments. The men have to get actively involved in the parenting roles. And that is the thing. Women are saying the reasons why they are opting out. This woman happens to be one and done, but other women are seeing what mothers go through and the sacrifices and all of the shouldering of all of the burdens for the children. Women are seeing that because mothers are coming on and talking about what they are going through with their supposed partners. Here's Live Laugh Lucy's caption. She says, relate to any of this? Here's the thing. Whether you have 1, 2, 3, or more kiddos, it's okay to be brutally honest about why having another might not be the best idea for you and your partner. I feel parenthood is a life-altering responsibility, and the decision to grow your family should never be taken lightly or even driven by external pressures. It's totally valid to acknowledge that adding another child might strain your relationship, your mental health, and your overall well-being. Sometimes honesty means confronting uncomfortable truths, like recognizing that you already feel overwhelmed or that your relationship has suffered from the stress of parenting. Maybe you don't feel supported enough by your partner, or you're afraid of losing more of your identity and freedom. These feelings aren't selfish, they're real, and they deserve to be considered. Financial struggles, health concerns, or even the trauma of a difficult postpartum experience are all legitimate reasons to pause and ask, is this the right choice for us? I feel it's courageous to admit that while parenthood is fulfilling, it can also be harder than you may want to take on again. Being honest with yourself and your partner doesn't mean you don't love your family or aren't grateful for what you already have. It means you're able to recognize your personal limits, your needs, and your well-being. Reminder that your family is the healthiest when both partners are thriving, not just surviving. And sometimes that means accepting that your family may already be complete as it is. Mothers really relate to these types of posts. They understand, and they are talking in the comment section, and child-free women can see these things. Charity says, it's very easy. I don't want to have no more damn babies. The end. This is my answer to anyone that would dare ask me. This person, Matt J, says, all this pressure about kids is cultural. I live in Central Europe, and here one child is just standard. Mrs. Martinez says the postpartum anxiety and depression ain't no joke. Been through it 3 times, never again. At the top, she says, I remember those days, but still got pregnant. And then she gives a sad cry face. Britt says, one and done. Love my bubs, but not adding anyone else to the mix for all of these reasons and more. Carly says, I love my baby with all my heart, but the process is awful. Not doing it again for sure. Millennial Force at the bottom says, girl, same. This is the reason why so many women are going to continue to be one and done if they even have children. And I cannot overstate how the unequal parenting load plays such a big factor in all of these things. Unequal parenting load means the majority of the parenting falls on mom. So these men, if they want to, the world leaders, men in general, the patriarchy, if they want to convince women to have babies, and yes, it is convincing women to have babies, they really have got to get the dudes on board with doing parenting duties. There's a child-free woman at the top. It's me, Abri says, this is why 0 is plenty for me. Women see these things. Shar says, mine is that my in-laws have caused so much tension and made my postpartum anxiety worse, and my husband not even understanding what they were doing to me. Telly says, how I see myself ending up with only one child. Marnie says, all of the above. Now we have a man, Richard, saying that all nothing compared to having a child. It is easy for a man to come in and say that, because for whatever reason, men have the opportunity to opt in or opt out of parenting duties. We talked about this recently when we talked about Ashanti and Nelly and how she is a married single mother. This dude said, I am not changing diapers. I'm not waking up with him. I'm not doing anything. If he can't say he's hungry, if he can't say he needs to use the bathroom, I'm not doing anything. So she is a married single mother at 44 years old because she decided to have a baby with a useless Dusty. This man said, I am not doing any of these things, and laughed about it with his bros. And that's the thing. When men actually participate in, parenting roles and they get to shoulder some of the responsibility, they do see how challenging it is. But as it stands, women are typically the ones doing the lion's share of the parenting and the household chores. Not saying that that's these two, because obviously these two have the money to pay for a nanny and a housekeeper. But regular everyday women may not have the money to afford a nanny, a night nurse, and someone to come over and cook and clean. And so you get all of this. You get the marital tension. You get the resentments and all of that put together. So these dudes are going to have to start doing their share. There's an old article. It was from May 2019. It was talking about when men in Spain took paternity leave and actually assisted with the parenting, how they wanted to have fewer kids because they were like there to shoulder some of the responsibility. They were there for like 3 months or something like that. I did the article a year ago on my TikTok page, and it's still relevant now. Men need to take on some of this. They need to take on some of the parenting load so that women are not getting overwhelmed. But men will want to have just as few babies when they are taking on some of that load as well. In light of all of the birth rate trend topics that I've been talking about, this old article is quite appropriate to have a discussion on. This is out of Spain. Men who received paid paternity leave want fewer children. Parents who received paid paternity leave took longer to have another child, and men's desire for more children dropped. A study in Spain has found the progressive reform towards gender equality may have changed the way men in the Mediterranean countries see fertility. The introduction of paternity leave in Spain, like in other countries, was part of a set of policies designed to promote gender equality in both the labor market and at home, said Libertad Gonzalez, one of the researchers behind the report. It was also to promote fertility. Spain is a low fertility country, Gonzalez said, but it seemed to have the opposite effect. According to the study, which was recently published in the Journal of Public Economics by Gonzalez and Lydia Farre, professors from the Spain's Universidad Pompeu Fabra and the University of Barcelona, respectively, the introduction of paid paternity leave has led to delays in fertility for eligible Spanish couples, with many waiting longer to have additional children. Additionally, the reform made men drop their desired number of children. This is not necessarily a negative outcome. The researchers found fathers spent more time with their offspring. They're spending more time with the child they already have, Gonzalez said. So her theory is that they could value investing more in this child versus having more of them. Or it could also be that dads are learning about how hard it is to take care of a child. And this new information is affecting their preferences for how many children they want to have in total. Farre and Gonzalez initially set out to study the effects of paid paternity leave on Spanish gender equality in the labor market. They found that women who had given birth went back to work earlier and took less unpaid leave, a positive effect of the labor market attachment for mothers, while there was no effect for men in the labor market. However, the subsequent delayed fertility due to the mandate was unexpected. Farre and Gonzalez identified two possible reasons why this may be. One idea is simply that mothers, when their partner is eligible for paternity leave, they go back to work a little earlier. This could mean that these moms are just more attached to the labor market, so that's why they might delay a little bit having the next child. Prior to the introduction of the reform, men were more likely to desire more children than their partners and spent less time with their offspring, researchers said. Additionally, fathers in Spain were making little to no use of parental leave and did little housework, according to the Spanish Times study cited in the new report. After the policy was introduced, researchers determined fathers who would have been eligible for paternity leave did almost an hour more childcare a day from 2009 to 2010 compared to ineligible fathers. However, Farre says this may be very specific to the Spanish case, and one has to be careful before extrapolating these results to other countries. Gonzalez expressed a fear of possible reversal due to low birth rates. I think both the government and more in general, Spanish society wouldn't support extensions in paternity leave if we show that they are actually leading to important reductions in fertility. But even so, Farre and Gonzalez are hopeful for their next round of research, testing whether paternity leave can affect the way that children think about gender roles. Perhaps for the next generation, we could see the effects of gender equality. I love this because so many men don't do the late nights, the consistent crying babies. They don't have the time because they don't have the paternity leave. But when they get to do the parenting full time, then they see how hard it is. And that's one of the reasons why we know for certain that many of these men in these countries that have a dropping birth rate are not actively talking to women, and they are not actively engaged parents, because they would know and understand firsthand why women are opting out of having babies. Something else I want to point out that is appropriate for the United States that we saw was the push for men to get back into the workforce after the COVID-19 mandates and after the whole work from home situation. They don't necessarily want to work from home, whereas women are able to maintain a career and a little bit more work-life balance if they're able to work from home, because women are typically the ones doing most of the caretaking, whereas the dads can't wait to escape back to the office, because housework and child rearing are jobs of their own, but they tend to be women's jobs, so they are unpaid and unappreciated and undervalued. So when they have to take this paternity leave and they have to be hands-on, then they see firsthand how challenging it is. And I love that for them. I'm glad that these researchers were able to find that correlation. And to bring it into this year, Spain's birth rate is still low. Spain's birth rate drops to lowest level since records began over 80 years ago. Spain's birth rate has dropped to its lowest level since records started in 1941. Provisional data from its National Statistics Institute showed on Wednesday, with just over 322,000 babies, adding to the country's population of 48.6 million in 2023. Last year, Spanish birth rate was down 2% compared with 2022, adding to the drop of almost 25% in a decade. This decline has left Spain with the second lowest fertility rate in the EU. Eurostat data from 2021 shows lagging Malta. Eurostat's data showed the rate in Spain at 1.19 live births per woman compared to the EU average of 1.53, both far short of the 2.1 at which existing population levels would be maintained without immigration. Demographers and economists have urged Europe to rethink attempts to boost its flagging birth rate, and some Spanish regions have introduced financial measures and tax deductions to encourage people to start families. It is true that childbearing is no longer generalized life aspiration. Women want to have a career. People want to do certain things before they start a family. That is Marta Ciez, a Madrid-based university professor specialized in family sociology, demography, and inequality. Economic uncertainty, unemployment, low-quality jobs, and soaring housing prices are some of the reasons why Spaniards were either getting pregnant later or having fewer children than they had originally intended, Ciez added. Although Spain has equalized policies of paternity and maternity leave, Ciez said the measures are still insufficient. INE said the decline in births was linked to a delay in the age of childbearing, with the number of women over 40 giving birth rising by 19.3% in the last decade. This age group now gives birth to around 10% of all children versus 6.8 in 2013. Mothers aged under 25 fell by 26% in the same period, representing just 9.4% of the total. This is a global phenomenon. Women in their 20s are not wanting to have kids. They are wanting to get financially stable, get their education. This is a global thing. Plus, maybe women in the past didn't want to have that many kids. They just didn't have choices. Women have choices. And instead of getting to the root of this issue, they keep saying the same thing, just in a different accent, because these global leaders will not talk to women. So I thought that would be interesting to bring up. Just for reference, the United States is sitting at about 1.6 as far as our birth rate is concerned. So our birth rate is still obviously below the replacement level. And I am hoping that with the way women's rights and women are being targeted, that our birth rate continues to plummet to hell, because many of these countries don't deserve babies the way they treat women and mothers specifically. And, I think that this birth rate will continue to plummet, and we will continue to watch the global birth rates over here on my channels. All right, jump in the comments. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.